Right now, though, ladies and gentlemen, we move on into our next session. How DOOH can pull more brands to the outdoor. We have with us Director of Digital Innovation and Head of Kinetic Active and Kinetic X UK. Ladies and gentlemen, to take this session forward, please put your hands together as I welcome on the stage Mr. Rosh Singh. A huge round of applause, please. Give it up, give an outdoor applause, make it large.
Good morning, welcome. Thank you. Oh, that's not the start. Here we go. Can you all hear me? So as was said, my name's Rosh. I run Kinetic Active in the UK. I'm also the Director of Digital Innovation for Kinetic in the UK. Really tasked with pushing Kinetic on into the future. And recently this year we started Kinetic X, which is our startup incubator looking at the future of out-of-home and the technologies that we can push out-of-home forward with. Today I really want to talk about how digital out-of-home can bring more brands outdoor and really look at the creative possibilities within digital out-of-home. What are we going to cover? Fairly simply, we'll go over a little bit the evolution of out-of-home, the growth of digital out-of-home and the evolution of digital out-of-home as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about dynamic digital out-of-home and the power of it. And we'll discuss the 4 R's of digital out-of-home. And then I'll spend a lot of the session going through a creative showcase, showing you some of the best examples of work that we've done in the UK that really highlights digital out-of-home. And interestingly, in the previous session, we were talking about kind of out-of-home being at the bottom of the pile. A lot of this work really puts it to the top of the pile. It gets it top of mind. It's award-winning work, and it looks absolutely incredible. And then at the end, I'll tease you with a little bit of a new medium, what's coming next, what's in the future, and something that we like to really think about at Kinetic. So to start off with, I don't need to tell you this, but out-of-home is a medium in constant evolution. For a traditionally analog medium, it is now definitely marching the digital march. From the humble beginnings of signs painted on the side of streets, we've seen a profusion and a huge amount of different billboard formats, all the way through to roadside digital. We've got big roadside, large format digital, screens in retail spaces, screens in rail transit, huge screens, and even screens on the side of the street that pump out free gigabit Wi-Fi. So it's not just advertising, it's utility. We're talking about smart streets and smart cities. This really is the current this kind of smart cities meets advertising. So in the UK, we have a lot of digital out-of-home, and the rise has been exponential. In 2008, we had about 2,000 screens in the UK, very, very London-centric, you'll notice on that map. 2014, there were about 6,000 screens, and today in 2017, there's 17,356 estimated, probably impossible to get that exact number, screens in the UK. And we're expecting 50,000 plus digital screens in the UK by 2021. It's around 43% of spend in 2017. This is all great, but we have made some mistakes along the way. You talked earlier about creative. Creative is still a problem. We have that in the UK too. We get print creatives put on a poster, and that poster creative then gets put on a digital poster. And it's about understanding and educating clients and creative agencies that digital is a completely new medium. It's not just a poster that happens to be a screen. It has its own nuances. I believe this number is correct. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong. In India, digital accounts for about 10%. Is that correct? Anyone want to shout out if I'm wrong? But the jump from 43% to 10% is a really exciting time. And I think with all these smart cities that we talked about earlier, we can see some really, really interesting and innovative work done on digital out-of-home. So the question is, how can digital out-of-home bring more brands to outdoor? For me, there is a very, very, very simple answer to this, and this is creativity. Digital outdoor is an incredible creative platform for brands to really play with the medium. If you think about the work they're doing in online and social, digital out-of-home can now be an extension of that. We can now use that same methodology, that same way of thinking, and put it onto digital outdoor. Again, this was mentioned in the previous session. Digital outdoor itself is evolving. We have linear digital outdoor, which is just standard creative, and that goes all the way through to interactive, so touching a screen, interacting with the screen itself, using your mobile to interact with that screen, all the way through to experiential, so putting that screen at the center of an experience and reflecting what's happening on real time on that screen. But where the real interest for me, and I think for all of our clients globally should lie, is this switch, is this shift from linear, digital out of home to dynamic. This is where the scale is. Interactive and experiential is great, and we can do some amazing things. But the shift from linear to dynamic is where the real creativity lies, and we can do it at scale. Every campaign should have a dynamic element to it. Just so that we are all on the same page, let's talk about what dynamic digital out of home actually means. So dynamic doesn't mean movement, it doesn't mean motion. If the screen can take motion, great. If it can't, that's not a problem. Dynamic digital out of home does not need motion. Dynamic digital out of home refers to the creative that is either triggered by or augmented by data. So that's either using data as a trigger for that content or using data as the creative itself, using data as the content itself. I'll give you some crude examples. For example, if I have a weather feed, I can understand if it was raining or sunny. If it's raining, I can put a creative up on screen that reflects the fact that it is raining. If it's sunny, I can put a creative on screen that reflects that it's sunny. Really simple. All I'm doing is switching between two creatives based on an incoming data source to make that creative more contextually relevant to the people around that screen. Using data as content, data as the creative is also really simple. Using incoming data sources, we can make that creative live and real time. A crude example is using a sports API and maybe putting the IPL scores in real time on the screens if you're sponsoring a team. That content keeps evolving and it keeps going. It is the creative itself rather than the trigger. So dynamic digital out of home, creative that is either triggered or augmented by data. To push us forward and to really change the mindset of how we think about digital out of home, I think this point is really important. Digital out of home has more in common with the internet than it does with a standard poster. And of course, it's not the internet and it works in a completely different way. But from a mindset perspective, if we think of it more like the internet than a poster, we can start to unlock some of the potential within digital out of home. If you look at the reactive, adaptive way that big agencies and big clients are working now, digital out of home gives us the perfect opportunity to reflect this in what we're doing in outdoor. All well and good, just because we can doesn't mean we should. It's a well-said statement, but we know that dynamic digital out of home makes your campaigns better. And some research done over the last few years proves this very well. Visual attention increases by 20%. And that's what we do. We're in the attention economy. We're trying to grab people's attention. That is what advertising is. Increasing that by 20% by using dynamic feeds and making that creative dynamic is a great result. Emotional intensity increases by 16%. Again, we're trying to make people feel things. People will feel more if you make that content relevant to them or the environment or the kind of situation around them. Engagement goes up by 32%. People are more likely to do something off the back of your ad. They're more likely to follow a call to action. They're more likely to do something that you want them to. And memory encoding goes up by 17%. So when customers are at the point of purchase, they're more likely to recall that brand if there has been an element of dynamic within that campaign. And we've seen sales uplift go up by 8%. This was a campaign that was done for Cadbury's big chocolate brand, so 8% is a huge amount of money. So dynamic digital out of home makes your campaigns better. It's been proven. It uses the best of the medium, and it should be done. This is our rally cry to our clients in the UK. One creative, 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever, think again. Do not think of digital out of home in the same way that you think and plan a poster. You should be putting dynamic feeds in there to make the most of the medium. And we've developed a way of thinking around this that's fairly simple. It's called the 4 R's. And we want all of our clients and we want everyone that we work with to think dynamically by default. When they think of digital out of home, they want to think dynamically. And the 4 R's are reactive, real-time, relevant, and rewarding. And there's a lot of overlap and they're fairly simple. But we say if you can do one or more of these things when you're planning and executing a digital out of home campaign, you're making the most of the medium. You're pushing the medium to its limits. So I'm going to go through all 4 of these and give you some examples of work that we've done that sings really well to these 4 as a bit of creative inspiration. And just to show that when you do these things, these campaigns don't sit at the bottom of the pile, they escalate right to the top. These are the things that the creatives, the creative agencies, the clients, and the media agencies are truly excited about doing, and we elevate outdoor into this big premium real estate that rightfully should have. So starting with reactive. Reactive, very simply, it does what it says on the tin. Content making reference to or triggered by current events. So it's being able to be adaptive and flexing to the things going on in the world. A very, very easy example of this is sports results. If we can pull that content and make that kind of contextually relevant point, you know, we're dealing with some great outdoor. A really great example of this is a campaign that we ran last year for The Sun, which is a tabloid newspaper in the UK that has a strong, very strong tie with football. And during the Euro 2016 campaign, they wanted to run an outdoor campaign that was more akin to you know, what the work they were doing on social and more akin to work they were doing in their papers. It was very headline based, and they wanted to react in real time to every single moment across the tournament, which was about 5 weeks in total. What I really like about this campaign is, you know, it is very English. You know, it's very pun based, so you may not get some of the comments in the video, but this is dynamic digital out of home at scale. You may have seen examples in the past, such as the BA example where the kid points at the plane. You may have seen the kind of Pepsi Max augmented reality bus shelter, and they are great campaigns, and they cleaned up at awards, but they existed on 1 or 2 sites. And what we really want to do is push this out at scale and make sure these campaigns can be done en masse, right? This campaign was, when it was done, it was the biggest dynamic digital out-of-home campaign that was done. It ran across 800 screens across England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So it's reactive, but it's also at scale. I'll play the video now so you get a bit of understanding of the campaign.
Euro 2016 was the biggest European tournament ever. 51 matches, 24 teams, 10 stadiums. We know a football tournament goes way beyond the average fan. It becomes an excuse to party, to skip work, to postpone the wedding. So while every brand was trying to get people's attention, The Sun brought their readers and the nation together with a campaign that made them feel like they were playing every ball, scoring every goal, and jumping into every tackle. The tournamental campaign kicked off with dynamic digital out-of-home screens that let us post Sun headlines as the action happened to nearly 800 locations in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland separately. Agency staff sat with the Sun editorial team and used WhatsApp to share their football mad lines faster and then publish them to all locations, or specifically train stations, roadsides, or pubs via the digital out-of-home CMS. In all, we wrote over 400 totally tournamental headlines. We were there for the unexpected victories, the heartbreak, the nail-biters, the banter, the champagne moments, the unbeliever bail, and we even set the agenda. We were able to post so fast that when goals were scored, our headlines were up before the game had even kicked off again. Brands like DFS and Iceland wanted in on the action. And we even did our bit for charity. At the final whistle, the results were: print sales increased by 320,000. The Sun Euros Hub scored almost 5 million page views and over 2.5 million unique visits. It was the UK's biggest and most reactive digital out-of-home campaign ever. Fantastic.
So we talk about how digital could bring more brands out of home. This is a campaign that existed only by this dynamic campaign. If this campaign didn't happen, there would be no media spent. It was over £1 million worth of media spent on this campaign. And it was all because of this dynamic digital out of home element to it. You know, they wanted to be reactive, and you know, this was a big campaign. It required a lot of people. But just to kind of let it sink in, you know, a football game could be going on, and if a team scored, we could update over 800 screens in real time before the game even kicked off again. So this is scale, and it is reactive. It is truly reactive. But clearly a campaign like this isn't right for all clients, and reacting and having a big team of people together to react to football games isn't what every client's doing all the time. But we can be reactive to something smaller. This is a campaign for a UK hardware company called B&Q. In this case, we're reacting to their live real-time sales data. So we're understanding what their stock levels are, what products they need to shift, and we're also understanding what products will work well given the weather conditions. So we built a custom algorithm that looks at stock levels, it looks at the weather, both forecast and current weather, and make sure we're always showing the right product at the right time on these screens. B&Q have done this kind of thing for quite a while, but outdoor was never a medium they ever thought about using because they simply couldn't do this traditionally. And by using dynamic digital out of home, we managed to claw money away from print and radio, which is where this currently would be. And they booked this campaign solely on the basis of being able to do this and reacting like this to the weather and their sales data. And they booked it for the entire summer period. So it doesn't just have to be big activations. Clever uses of data, understanding our clients' needs and reacting to them is perfectly possible within digital out of home as well. Moving on to relevant. So, this is all about creating contextual points of relevance to the people around your screen. Understanding that not everyone that views that particular screen feels the same way or thinks the same way at different times of the day. We all know that we feel different in the morning than we do in the evening. And this is about understanding those parameters and also understanding kind of the environmental and situations that the people are in as they're consuming our media. This could be weather, but in this example, we didn't use weather. We've got a big screen on the side of the road, right? And we understand that traffic is, it can, I've known for my 5 days here that traffic can either be very good or very bad. And in the UK, it's very similar. We understand that an audience member who's trying to consume this media will either spend a fraction of a second looking at that screen, or they'll have a good 30 seconds to look at that screen. So how can we adapt to do that? We partnered with TomTom, and we used their live traffic status data to make sure that the creative on the screen was always reflective of how long the dwell time in front of that particular screen was. So if the traffic was free-flowing and people were traveling at 60 miles an hour, there would be less creative on that. There would be less copy on that screen. So we'd only have a tagline, and there'd be less things for people to read clearly. And if the traffic was at a standstill and people were spending more time in front of that screen, we'd put more copy, maybe even a call to action on top of it as well. So it's understanding the audience, understanding their mindset, and understanding the environment and the dwell time, and ad serving off that and making sure we're showing the right message to the right person at the right time. A really interesting example of this is a campaign we did for Netflix a few years ago now. Again, this is really good because it used relevant content. It used their own content bank. So we pulled out loads of GIFs from all of their shows, and we used a bunch of different data feeds to make sure we're always showing the right creative, the right GIF at the right time. For example, if it was raining, it would be clips from the show when it was raining. So it might be someone from the 300 stood in the rain. If it was sunny, it would be someone out on a beach enjoying the sunshine. If the screen was on a rail platform, it would be clips of people from the rail platform. If it was at night, it would be at night. You get the idea. Using a big content base, but then using data to make sure that we're segmenting and we're showing the right relevant content to the right people at the right time. So moving on to real time. This is a really powerful way of using digital out of home. This is about making sure that we can use live data feeds and we can use live content to kind of be real time and on the button. Again, a lot of brands are doing this already with adaptive and content-based marketing. Live copywriting is a good way of doing this. And a great example of this campaign is this campaign we did for Lynx, which is Axe, the Unilever body spray, and Calm, which is the campaign against living miserably, which is a male suicide charity in the UK. And it's based on this notion that, sadly, in the UK, a man commits suicide every 2 hours. It's the biggest killer of young men in the UK. And we wanted to find a way that we could kind of get people to talk about it, because it's a big issue, but no one really talks about it. So using this idea that a man kills himself every 2 hours, we built this campaign. And this campaign picks up at the Cannes Lions, and the outdoor bit was only a part of the main campaign, but it was the main way of telling the story. It was a storytelling kind of narrative kind of dashboard for the whole campaign. And basically we were looking at all the different things that people were talking about in the news, in the media, on blogs, on social networks, and we were using that to juxtapose the fact that they were talking about their Starbucks coffee rather than talking about the bigger issue of suicide. I'll let the video explain the rest.
Suicide is the single biggest killer of young and middle-aged men in the UK. Research out today suggesting more than a third between the ages of 18 and 45 have considered taking their own life.
In 2014, 4,623 men in the UK took their own life. That's one guy every 2 hours. And although these statistics are alarmingly high, awareness remains surprisingly low.
If a guy is saying that he's worried and he's down and he can't cope, then the response back to him is that he needs to grow up, he needs to man up. And for women, nobody says to women, woman up, stop complaining, don't talk about this kind of stuff. But they do with guys.
Having been part of Guy's life since 1985, Lynx had an opportunity to use their profile to help raise awareness of this serious issue. But how do you go about it when it's something that we all find so difficult to talk about, especially guys? From man buns to celebrity gaffes, teen lineups to emojis, the campaign pulled hot topics from the press and social media to highlight all the things that were bigger than suicide. These everyday topics fueled an eye-catching, real-time ad campaign using social media and digital billboards across the country to draw guys into the issue. And to recognise the rate at which guys are currently taking their own lives, they were updated every 2 hours. Lemons were bigger than suicide in Manchester as the Stone Roses announced their return. In London, people couldn't get enough of Starbucks red cups. A new Twitter like button became a hot topic across the UK, and there was a lot of talk about the weather. Having grabbed their attention, we asked guys to lend their voice to the cause using their Twitter or Facebook handle. Supporters gave us permission to send a single, synchronised message from their account, Thunderclap, on International Men's Day, with the aim of making suicide the biggest issue for one day at least. And the results? The Bigger Issues campaign got the attention of the national press, radio stations, TV, as well as a host of familiar faces.
Saying that, but I still think there's a lot.
Our Thunderclap trended across the UK, reaching over 23 million people, and even got the attention of government, resulting in male suicide being debated in Parliament for the first time ever.
It was run in association with the men's grooming brand Lynx, and I think we should pay tribute to whoever it was who has taken that decision.
According to a YouGov poll, as a result of the campaign, awareness of male suicide has increased by 45%. For one day, we got everyone talking bigger issues.
So you can see from that, you know, outdoor wasn't the only part of that campaign, but it really was the linchpin. It was the center point of that campaign that elevated it to the level it was. And clearly the results were incredible on that. I've been told I'm running out of time, so I'll crack on. The last one is rewarding. So understanding that advertising does not just have to be advertising, it can be useful. You can give back to people as you advertise to them. It's okay to do that. The Wi-Fi on prime site screens are a great example of this. And we can kind of make the advertising really useful for people. This is a very simple example we did a few years ago for Lloyd's Bank. And basically this was in bus shelters before anyone had any apps that told them the bus times. We just put a simple feed on the top of the bus shelter that told them how long the bus was due in. Right? Very simple, gave back, people enjoyed it, and they spent more time looking at the ad as a result of that than they would before. But really interestingly, we could change the content on the screen based on that data. So we know that people have 4 minutes to wait, so we'll serve a call to action on the messaging that takes around 4 minutes. So next example is something we did for My Taxi, which basically is an Uber service for the black cabs of London. They're having a tough time at the moment, and My Taxi kind of rebranded. What we did here was we wanted to use proprietary data, our clients' own data, to make this campaign amazing. So we took the APIs out of our app and basically recreated the entire taxi app within the digital out-of-home screen. So this is clients' own data. No one else can do this campaign. And in real time, as that ad would load, it would show a live real-time feed of all the cabs on that screen in that area. So each time that ad loaded, it would show the real-time location. So you know exactly where the cabs are, and it would show you how long you had to wait as well. So with all those four, with reactive, real-time, relevant, and rewarding, we can be doing one of those in our campaigns. We really are starting to use the medium to the best of its ability. And I'll leave you with some do's and don'ts of great digital out-of-home. First one is, don't think of digital out-of-home like classic out-of-home. It's completely different. Change your mindsets. As we mentioned earlier, it's just in the same way you don't put print creative on an out-of-home site, don't put static out-of-home creative on a digital screen. Do integrate data into your campaigns. It makes it better. Creating that contextual point of relevance is incredible. And do try and find data sources that are unique to your business or your clients' businesses, because creating that point of contextual relevance and doing something that no one else can do is incredibly important. And do consider the changing mindset of your audience. Understand that people are different at different times of day and they want and need and feel differently, and serve contextual messages to them. Don't think in one-screen executions, think in scale. We want to do this at scale, and it's more cost beneficial for the client if we do these things at scale. Don't try and overcomplicate. A simple idea, a simple hook goes a very long way. It's more in the execution than it is in overcomplicating the idea. And then do digitally upskill your team. So making sure that from a media owner perspective, you have the right back-end staff, people that understand digital and can think in a digital way, that can coordinate and help your agencies, the creative agency and the clients do these campaigns is incredibly important. I don't know how much time I've got, but I'm going to leave you on one thing. We at Kinetic are really focused on what is coming next and what is new. Kinetic X, as I said, is our startup incubator looking at the future of out-of-home. And our vision is that we actually actively want to create the future of out-of-home. We don't just want to talk about technology. At Kinetic, we're all about doing things and implementing and actioning things. And so we start up Kinetic X, which is our startup incubator. One of our first big partnerships is with a company called Lightvert, and they've got a new product called Echo, which is a completely new visual medium. And this could be the future of digital out-of-home. This is how it looks. And basically, it's a new projection technology that has a very thin real estate on the side of a building, so it's a very thin fabric strip that goes up a building and it's projected onto. And what it does is it breaks an image up to vertical columns and projects it very quickly across that thin 200mm vertical strip on top of a building. It projects very fast, and then your brain recreates that image in your eye. So that image you see there looks hyperscale, but actually it only ever exists in the eye of the person viewing it. So, you know, we talk about virtual reality and augmented reality. This is kind of a physical manifestation of what augmented reality could look like in the future. So this isn't hypothetical. This is launching. We've been working with these guys for about 18 months now. We're actually we're in India for the last 5 days talking to your clients. We will be launching in October. This medium is coming. It won't be that big, just to start off with. That's a hyperscale unit that is our future vision. That's 200 meters big. We're launching with a 30-meter unit, and that will be coming in October, November time. So potentially the future of what we're doing. We talk about smart cities. This could be implemented quite easily. That's me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. You've left us with so much to look forward to. And something that you've got to look forward to is the questions that are going to come your way right now. So we've had loads of questions, but to make sure that 3 get presented to you right now, and then you choose one of those 3 to give a prize back to.
Sure.
So if you're ready, I'm going to welcome on the stage Mr. Rohit Chopra, who's the CEO of Timda, to please join us on stage. Welcome, sir.
Also been asked to share some of the takeaways, and I believe in quoting few of the words from his great thing which he presented. One of them is, digital out of home is 43% in UK. It may not reach 43% in India. 10% is the figure which he has mentioned in India. In the Times Delhi airport, we are almost 15%. And one of the levers for growth, which we identify in the next 5 years, is digital out of home. So we need to take cognizance of this fact. Second word he used is movement or evolving from linear to experiential. Yes, that's there, and the word he used, dynamic. And he's used the 4 R's to showcase what digital out-of-home offers, what it needs to be: reactive, real-time, relevant, rewarding. The example of football, the context of speed being of a factor in designing your copy, it being relevant, yes. Amongst the do's and don'ts, the biggest 2 do's and don'ts which I would like to highlight is a basic frame of mind that digital out of home is different from classic out of home. Data, triggers, it's not a poster, and most importantly, which we very strongly should invest in, is upskill your team. There are many questions out here. Some of them are related to what he has presented, some of it related to Kinetic, some of them are related to his experience in UK. So I have picked one question from 3 buckets, and he can take a look and choose which of them. Would you like to take a look?
Where's the question?
Question is here.
Oh.
This is the first one. Okay. Question 7 is this one.
Yeah, we can do that one.
Okay.
That one. This one.
Okay, the question is, do you believe the success and future of digital outdoor is dependent on its integration with other mobiles? Example, other media like mobiles and radio? Question has been put forward by Rishiraj Kesar from Proactive.
I don't think it's 100% dependent on it. I think digital outdoor has an incredible amount of strengths to survive on its own. We've seen kind of the power of the kind of things we can do on digital outdoor. But I don't think it will hurt. I think it can be integrated into other channels. We can pull social feeds in. We can tie it with mobile. We can use our phones to integrate with the screens. And we should be doing that. Putting digital outdoor as a key part of a media plan, a key part of a creative strategy, will only kind of benefit us. I don't think it's vital for the future of our medium, but I think it definitely helps. And it raises the standard of the things we can do, and it gets people more interested in what we're doing.
Is that, or we have one more? 2 more, okay. Second question is this one. Is related to how commercial between UK and Senegal. Are you okay with this?
Not really my bag, but. Yeah.
Next question is from Jagran Engage, M. Kumar. Big brands belonging to MNCs are more amenable to using digital out of home. How do we get the small and medium-sized brands to use the digital out of home? How do we upsell this medium to them?
I think that's an interesting question. I think, certainly in my experience in the UK, we see the same. I think we have a 3-tier strategy to make it easier for smaller brands to get involved in the kind of work we do, and that is to make it quicker, make it cheaper, make it easier, right? I think they're the 3 barriers that we come across. Cost is something that we all have to work on and we all struggle with, but I think just the understanding levels of smaller clients might be much less, and overcomplicating things and making it hard for them it is a barrier to entry. So we say if we can make it quicker, cheaper, and easier, we will increase our client base.
And the last question is very specific to Kinetic.
Yep.
The question is, what is the role of Kinetic Active on building content? Who faces the client, Kinetic or Kinetic Active? Do Kinetic collaborate with creative agencies to build content? Question is from Nebindu, Milestone.
Yeah, so Kinetic Active in the UK basically acts as a standalone creative agency embedded within Kinetic. So we have our own branding, as you'll see from the thing. We operate in our own way, but we are plugged into the core of Kinetic, into the Kinetic proper. We face the clients, we go out there, we come up with the ideas. Our range of services ranges from building the creative, filming, idea generation, execution, project management. But we also work very closely with the creative agencies. We make sure that we can plug into them to the best of our ability. So if they have a production team, we won't do the production, we'll let them do it, but we'll do everything else. So it's all about collaboration and understanding the place that Kinetic has within the landscape, but also having the right amount of skills within our team to make sure that we can offer everything. So, we are, in a way, we are a separate entity, but we're very much embedded into the core of what Kinetic do. I can't remember them now. What were they? I'm going to say the last one, because it's the one I remember the best.
Nabindu, Milestone. Nabindu.
This is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Nabedu Bhattacharya. Fantastic. Thanks to Alak Advertising and Publicity. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Mr. Rosh Singh, thank you for that fantastic session. Thank you so much, Mr. Chopra.